I think we all know by now what has happened in the last few months. In part, we had a huge expansion of the crypto market, more and more regulations, increasingly better news, and more countries that are also interested. And so on. One might think it couldn't be going any better. Nevertheless, Bitcoin has outperformed everything here. Things don't look good at all for the altcoins, and that is the biggest problem. Accordingly, we are currently so deep in fear. A lot of focus was on Bitcoin throughout the entire last year. Bitcoin dominance has continued to build, and once again, it has been shown. In the crypto market, the majority is always wrong. Many thought we would see an altcoin season. What happened? Something much worse happened. Bitcoin corrected by 30%, while altcoins like Chainlink, which also have a high market cap, corrected by 60%. VeChain, 70% correction. With TensorTau, 70% correction. This happened even though the majority thought, hey, we are slowly entering an altcoin season. That is always wrong. That was really the harsh lesson now. And if you want to be prepared for the bull run and an altcoin season and so on in the future, then subscribe to the channel now. It would support me immensely as I put a lot of effort into these videos. We are looking at the current market phase, which I have just explained to you. In the current market phase, we simply see that Bitcoin is still doing quite well in comparison because we have also built up in terms of dominance. While we have fewer and fewer Bitcoins on the exchanges, the Bitcoin price is rising. Although we are currently stagnating a bit, in comparison, it's not that bad. Wild. What was much more alarming in the last few months is that we have risen with Bitcoin, while the altcoins here in red, of course, have also corrected with Bitcoin. But every time Bitcoin corrected, we corrected much more strongly with the altcoins. You can see that here. We rose with Bitcoin here, but with the altcoins we didn't even outperform Bitcoin. But when Bitcoin then corrects, we correct much more significantly with the altcoins. And this became really clear in the last few months. This has been a really tough lesson. Altcoin investors have really taken a beating in the last few months, and to become smarter here, to see what can change, whether it might have already changed, and so on, let's just take a look at the past. Because the past always tells us a lot about the future. Let's just take a look at the others. Chart. Here we see we had a correction of almost 55% in the entire altcoin market, and I think everyone felt it with the altcoins. That was a really tough time. Let's look at the last cycles over the past weeks. In 2021, we had an altcoin season. After that, we corrected by about 70% until summer and rose again by the end of the year. However, it's a bit difficult to compare these because we already had a mature altcoin season here, were definitely overheated, and then had this correction. At the time, we weren't really overheated, but even here in between, we had a small correction, which was about 40%. It looks small, but it was just like that. 40%. That was right in the middle. And I think the current cycle should be compared more to the 2017 cycle. And here, the picture is actually quite similar. Take a look at it. I think that's much more meaningful. After the halving, we gradually built up over months. Then we had a really nice increase in altcoins. Subsequently, there was a strong correction in altcoins over weeks of more than 60%. So back then, the correction was also significantly harsher. As it is currently, up here, we also rose very sharply again, but here too, a correction of almost 50%. So this is quite similar to the trend we currently have. Because currently, you can also see we had a rise in altcoins, looked nice, strong correction, another rise, and then an even stronger correction. And that's how it looked in 2017, so relatively similar. Here too, we had a long phase of stagnation, where in the end, not much really happens. And that's good to know. Accordingly, we can say that such corrections, such things are part of the market. You can see that here again. We had a nice rise here, but then also a massive correction of almost 50%, where the entire market was cleared from long and short positions. So it was in the 2017 cycle. So we also suffered extremely with the altcoins here. It's good to know that what is happening here is not an exception, but rather has happened in the past. It was the same way. Now we need to look at what the reasons are, because as I have shown you, we have Trump as president. We actually have so many positive reasons, and yet we were not doing well, especially with the altcoins. I would say the altcoins performed so well because of Michael Saylor and the altcoin ETFs. They really pushed the altcoins completely last year. On the other hand, we currently have a chance of a recession in the USA. So we have uncertainty in the markets due to things like tariffs, for example. These punitive tariffs have created a lot of uncertainty in the markets. And that is precisely the problem with the altcoins right now. That's why the big money is still focused on the altcoins. Altcoins are seen as a safe asset, but there is absolutely not much money left for the altcoins because we are still too uncertain in the entire market, including stocks. I can show you this in the stocks. This here is the Russell 2000. This is an index that includes over 2,000 smaller stocks. We also had the bull run here in 2021. Around the same time, we had the crypto bull run. We reached our peak here, and we haven't reached this peak in 4 years. We were close to performing a bit with the smaller stocks as well, but even here, it hasn't looked good in recent months. And that's the thing, we haven't been performing well with smaller stocks in recent months, nor with our altcoins. This is all connected to the recession risk we have and the significant uncertainty in the markets. As a result, we simply have no risk appetite here. Additionally, the dollar was partially strengthened, which also led to a lack of risk appetite here. We also need a weak dollar. The good thing here is we've already had Donald Trump as president before, and we can simply look at how things were in the past. Here in green, you can see we also had tariffs there, we had market uncertainty, and the dollar was even strengthened temporarily. But if we look at it, at some point we reached our low, and afterwards we still had a really big upswing. And in terms of time and data, it almost perfectly aligns with the current situation. Back then, we also rose in mid-March, and currently we are slowly rising again. And it's just crazy that Trump is currently doing exactly the same thing as he did back then. This story is simply repeating itself completely identically. The aim here is to deliberately create fear and uncertainty. But we definitely still have hope at the end of the tunnel, because back then, the bull market continued afterwards. And even in terms of time and data, it almost completely aligns. It was only in March and April that the market started performing better again. But before that, we also had these fluctuations back then. And this fear is panic in the markets. And then we need to talk about our current data situation for this year. And here it actually looks like the dollar is slowly entering this risk area. The lower we fall with the dollar, the more people will flee into risk assets. That's already good to know. This is the Fed's balance sheet from last year. We had a lot of money taken out of the markets here, but we now know that by May, this tight monetary policy will be over. And accordingly, we will also slowly see a monetary expansion in the USA again. This is extremely important for risk assets, for small stocks, but also for altcoins. Without fresh money, altcoins cannot perform. We see that the M2 money supply is rising. This is also the reason why we are currently rising. We are simply seeing global liquidity slowly coming back in. These are the positive things. These are the things that are currently pushing us again. Now, of course, the question arises, is the altcoin season coming? Because just because Ethereum and stablecoins, for example, are currently dominating the altcoins, it already looks to some as if we might be able to initiate the altcoin season. Now, in combination with further liquidity, that would be nice, but to be honest, it doesn't happen that quickly. The M2 money supply is slowly reaching the markets. And we are rising a bit, but it's all building up, piece by piece. It doesn't currently look like we're about to see an altcoin surge, but what we do know is that the foundation is slowly being laid. Fresh money, a weaker dollar. This tariff uncertainty is continuously decreasing, and eventually it won't matter to anyone anymore, or these tariffs will eventually end. And that's why our foundation for the altcoins is improving week by week. And I believe that's also the message I want to convey to you in this video today. Because I don't want to say again that the altcoin season will start in 2 weeks. No. But I want to say that the foundation for an altcoin season currently looks better than ever. At this point, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of work, so please feel free to leave a like and a comment. And then I would say, see you next time, friends.